I'm Melissa LaFara.
And I am Sarah Jane Lambert.
And we have been friends for a long time. And we have been talking about doing a tarot deck for a long time.
Yeah, 10 years.
10 years.
Probably.
10 years we have wanted to do a tarot deck. And we have finally sort of made it happen. And so here we are on Kickstarter. And it has been a long journey. In the meantime, we worked on our independent disciplines, me as an astrologer and tarot consultant and musician, and Sarah Jane
as a professional artist.
Such an amazing artist. Such an amazing artist, as you'll see with our deck. So the concept of Tarot of Her really came from our love of Mother Nature, right?
Yes.
We are both
And our connection to Mother Nature.
Our
Mother Nature.
Connection to the mother. And so we have different suits with the blooms as the fire and the stems as the water, and the roots as the earth and the air as the leaves. And we have a special deck, right? Because it's 79 cards. And why is that, Sarah?
Because we were both born in 1979, and they are also round.
And so that's another big part of the concept of the deck, is that it actually works not just in upright or reversals, but it works in lunar phases, or how we would view the life of a plant cycle. And so that is a unique factor of this deck, is that we can read it based on more of this nuance of the cycles of life. So our collaboration process with Tarot of Her really originated from first storytelling, where I would almost create a story around our heroine of, I guess, our heroine, I guess we could say. And then I would share that story with Sarah Jane, who would just take next level.
Just ran with it.
Ran like a marathon. And then we would get these gorgeous paintings back that would revise my whole story. And so just as someone who's so connected with the tarot, it was watching these archetypes and the stories that are already in my head come alive through her vision. I'm just bowled over about how unique just what came out there.
Your words just helped me paint those paintings. So joint effort here. Team.
Yeah. What was your favorite part about making the deck?
For me, my favorite part was just being able to watch myself get better with each painting. I really felt like I could hone in. I had this amount of time and space to create these paintings, and it was this very organic process for me to actually see myself get better with each painting.
And I saw it too. I mean, she blew my mind, really, especially by the time we got the last card. It was an evolution.
It was an evolution.
Of someone who was already a fantastic artist, but just watching the evolution, yeah,
Thank
100%.
You. Thank you, Mel. And you, what was your favorite part about the deck?
My favorite part was the collaboration among us to make something special. That was super fun. We just had such a great time together, and that was the best part. And, creating your own tarot deck, there's a magic in that too. But I do have to say, it's just working together.
That's right, baby.
So our hopes for the project is that you are as enthusiastic as we are about it, because we really want to make this dream a reality. And as they say, it takes a village. So we hope that you will be on board to make Tarot of Her and our dream come true.
Thank you.
And may the stars be with you.
All right, all right, all right. Welcome back to the Energetic Principles podcast. Today we're going to be talking about the Libra Equinox season 2023, and we have a very special guest returning to the program, Rachel Lang. Thanks for joining me again, Rachel.
Thanks so much, Mel. I'm so excited to be here, and I have my Libra mug to celebrate Libra season.
That's right. And we have a bona fide Libra right here, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep, for better or worse.
Literally. Yeah. So we will hear it straight from the horse's mouth, or the scale's mouth, or I don't know how it works. But today with Rachel here, a little insight. And so before we get started, for those who are not familiar with Rachel or her work, can you share a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I've been a practicing astrologer since 2006, but a student for many years before that. And I really love to be at the intersection of astrology, spirituality, and social engagement. So I think, I don't know, one of very few, one of hardly any elected astrologers who's serving in elected office. I'm a city council member in Ojai, California. And I'm also the author of Modern Day Magic, 8 Simple Rules to Realize Your Power and Shape Your Life, and a children's book, As Above, So Below, that just came out in 2023.
Here we have it right here, right next to me. I just happen to have it there. So cute.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, and I teach a lot. I work with the Omega Institute and write their horoscopes. So I have my scales in lots of different areas.
When I think about Rachel, I'm always like, where does she find time? I'm like, what secret time portal is this woman holding that can get all these things done? I'm like, I'm baffled and amazed and impressed that you're able to get this all done.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a 6th house stellium. That's all I have to say.
I get it. I mean, I don't get it, but I get it. I can imagine. I can imagine. Yeah. Well, we were just talking about before we got on with you guys that we were both like, we need a vacation. You're like, come on, give me, because it's a lot, especially being astrologers. We were talking about how the planets never stop moving, and we're always talking about them, and we're always sharing things, and people are always having their lives and their issues and what they come to us to connect with. And it's just this I don't want to call it a hamster wheel because I love it. Like, I don't want to make it sound bad or anything.
Right.
But you were like, okay, where do you inject a vacation in there? Where does the vacation come in?
It's so true. And what's really funny, every Mercury retrograde, every eclipse cycle, I think, this won't be bad. I've got this. And usually what's happening is we're getting the same transits that everybody else is getting, but because we are the ones who are right there kind of carrying people through, helping them navigate through some of the more intense times of year, we don't get to have that break when we should be getting that break.
Yeah.
And so it's, I think it's a gift. Actually, I find that during eclipses, it's always so much better to help someone else. It's it really is a gift, though. I am grateful every day that I get to do this work. I know I complained about not having enough time, but astrology just colors your worldview in a way that helps it all make sense. And so it really is a privilege, a gift. I'm so grateful for this work.
Yeah. And I've said it before and I'll say it again. The work calls you. Yeah. You don't sign up for it. you get on the bandwagon once it rings your line, but that it is a pretty I have to say it when I say it out loud to people, especially people who aren't in the astrology world, and I'm like, oh, what do you do for a living? I'm like, oh, I'm an astrologer. And they're like, the look in their eye, and I'm like, oh yeah, I guess that does sound interesting, doesn't it?
Uh-huh.
So at the very least, we're interesting people. We have a lot to share, and we have a lot to share with you here today as we're going to talk about Libra equinox season. But it's not just equinox season. It's eclipse season. So we're going to have our first eclipse in Libra here for since quite a little time here. We've already had a little taste of the Aries action earlier this spring. We got our Aries solar eclipse, but we're going to have a Libra one here shortly. So we're going to be talking about that. And we are going to be talking about, let's just start with just equinox energies. The writer of the magic book, Rachel, tell us a little bit about the equinox and what it kind of brings to the fold for people.
Yeah. Well, the equinox is one of there's the October equinox and the March equinox. And I've quit saying autumn or summer because because of the, hemispheres, we have different seasons. We're transitioning to different seasons. But what the equinox is it's a time when there's a balance between dark and light. And because there's a balance, I think there are times when our polarities are more evident. We can see the polarities that exist within ourselves, within culture. It's almost like people go to the extremes that they're going to go to in terms of their ideologies, in terms of their perspectives. And then in going to those extremes, we come and find our middle ground. So they're very powerful points of year. I mean, I think I'm a Libra. I've spent my whole life thinking about peace and what does peace mean? And it really does mean integrating polarity and finding a way to where there's not a positive charge or a negative charge, but there's just a balance. There's a sense of harmony. And that's the opportunity that we have during equinox season, is how can we take the aspects of our lives that feel very conflictual and reach a level of neutrality within ourselves. Now, I know that's not the traditional pagan idea of what an equinox is, but this is my reframe of the equinox. It's also the ingress, the cardinal ingress.
That's true.
Another whole piece of this, but I want to hear what you think of the equinox. I'm interested in your perspective.
I mean, I like Rachel's take on it, especially since what we have recently experienced in the astro world with currently we're speaking while Mercury is still retrograde. We just went through the Venus retrograde cycle. There is a lot of energy that has been pulled out of whack in different spaces for different people. So when you're speaking about coming together at this equilibrium point, in this place where maybe we can access neutrality, because that's not always easy to come by, and especially when life is shifting and having taken you all these places and taken you back and pushed you forward, and how do you balance back out? How do you get a vacation? Oh no, we talked about that before. That's a potent point. That's what I always think about it as, that balancing point, that tipping point, right? Because it's that rare moment that we get twice a year when there is literally just that the equality of the daylight, of the consciousness, of the awareness, right? Here in the northern hemisphere, obviously we're going to go down to even darker days, right? The light is beginning to recede, and that ushers us into this time of harvest, but also retreat, and sort of this dormant stage of winter that will eventually be here. And so it's that tipping point that you're just like, oh, I see, I'm feeling, you feel the energy of the air start to shift, the temperature starts to shift, and it just knocks you into the next cycle, the next half. And that's the nature of cardinal signs, right? You the wheel turns, it initiates the next thing, and whatever that next thing might be, then we are in it. But I've always Libra season's such an interesting season for me personally, because I'm a Scorpio rising. So for me,
Mhm.
I'm going into this more liminal 12th house, winding down, like for, you know, because some people really love the fall, right? You know, they're like, and I feel like just embracing the leaves that are falling in the air, and it's crisp, and me, I'm like ready to tuck under a rock or something. You know, get my loved one, you know, and watch some Netflix and tuck under a rock. But that's just me personally.
Yeah, that's I think a lot of people have that same experience where it's like the time when you want to get the fireplace going, um and and because you know the equinox starts Libra season and makes Venus the dispositor of
Yeah.
the sun. um it is a time when when we do it, they call it cuffing season, you know, in
Yeah.
some people, where it's like you do want to find your people and connect to your people, and in particular those deep relationships and partnerships. um you know, but it's funny, I think with Libra and Cancer in particular, being people forget that they're cardinal signs. You know, it's like these are the Cancer impulse is to create in the home and to use that energy to build a nest, and for Libra it's about partnering. But Libra season is an action focused time. It's a
Yeah.
time when, and in particular the equinox and solstice points are those times of year, 4 times a year, where you have a concentration of cardinal energy that is magnified, intensified, and it says, where do you want to go? And so while we are in many ways pulling back, turning inward, slowing down, we're also getting a sense of what, you know, we're 3/4 through the year. So it's like, well, what didn't I accomplish during the last equinox 6 months ago? What did I miss in the summer solstice? And it's kind of like, okay, I've got to get some things done. And so there's that polarity, the impulse to pull in, the impulse to go out. um and yeah,
Yeah.
I'll pass it back
Well,
to you.
good old Libra, you know. And you next here. Well, and that makes a lot of sense, thinking about going into Venus season, right? Because that's a big part of Libra season. But we have to think about Venus being this point of, you know, she's just been through this whole journey, and now all of a sudden the sun is coming to its point in the skies where it defers to her, which is always interesting because the sun, as we know, it is in fall in Libra. So the sun is not as comfortable in the sign of Venus there. But it's interesting just to think about the nature of that partnering, of that coming together, that social quality that Libra brings out, and how much might have changed in those areas because of the Venus retrograde. And now the sun's coming along and being like, okay, well, I'm going to shine my rays in this area of your lives. And what has changed might have been integrated as she starts to gain speed. But back to the cardinal, well, what's being initiated next? Like, what are the next steps? And being maybe ready for that next thing, because I mean the solar eclipse is going to open a lot of doors for people, especially in partnerships. Whether the partnership is going to be budding, the partnership will be ending, you know, it just depends on obviously the person's life. But there's an interesting cycle of relation that is going to be kicking off here.
That is such a great point. Yeah, it's like hold your breath, buckle up. And you know, one thing I wanted to speak to also is just the equinox, or the equinox chart. I always find that the chart for the start of a season really tells us a lot about that season. And so it's a Capricorn moon. So right there, and hang on, I need to look at, I need to pull up my chart.
There we go. We got it.
Okay,
We got
great.
it here.
Thank you so much. Great. Yeah, so that Capricorn moon it adds to the cardinal quality of this. It's also the first, or the quarter moon. And so there we see, okay, there's a little evidence of some tension right there. Showing us that balance is going to be a really important theme. And then we also have Venus. It's funny, I'm clicking around on your
Your screen on the shared screen.
We also have Venus. She's right next to Juno.
Here, let me add old Juno.
Great,
Yeah,
great.
she's
Thank
been
you.
riding alongside Juno. I'll just put everyone in here. There we go. Okay,
And so that adds to what you were just talking about with, the eclipses, Libra season as a whole, really going to punctuate themes of commitment, themes of partnership, and not just what's wrong with our relationships or what are we not, what would we like to change. It's more of, what does commitment look like to us, and are we in a balanced relationship? Is there partnership here? And if not, then how can we reshape the dynamics of our relationships? So I think Juno's presence is kind of punctuates all of those themes.
And when you're speaking, it made me think too, because we're always thinking about polarity when it comes to, well, just signs in general, but there's always that sign across the pond. And we just talked about how there was a solar eclipse in Aries earlier in the year. And so when you think about Aries, there's these qualities of independence, and I'm going to go do it on my own, and, take on, with enthusiasm as much as you can, and only want to work by yourself. And now Libra comes around and you're like, oh, wow, that was a lot. I had to, I can't do everything myself. And maybe I'm not, being a one person show isn't as cracked up as I thought it would be. And so how do I find collaborators or teams or just other people that could support me even in the journey? So if you've been leaning on too much of the side of, oh, I'm just doing it all myself, it feels like this is going to be an open door to be able to bring other people in.
That's right. Yeah. And we have to remember too that Venus is still in its post shadow phase.
Yes.
And so that and because the sun answers to Venus, and Venus is still getting back on track for the first part of the month, that means that we are still working through some of the creative play. I mean, Venus and Leo Venus retrograde in Leo for me has been all about, you need a vacation. It's been all about play, and creativity, and how do we, what keeps us from being creative, and how do we express ourselves through our unique craft. And so this is still one of those topics that I think is still going to be relevant as we move through Libra season. It's kind of like, okay, we are definitely in the shadow, and Venus wants our attention, but now she wants our attention in order to create, action steps to remedy some of the things that came up during the retrograde.
Yeah. And so sun coming back in, we're leaving that Mercury story, which, boy.
Yep.
Woo, this Mercury retrograde has been insanity. Right. Insanity. It's like everything, all the mechanical breakdowns, brains just don't want to work, it's just it's been a while since I think I've experienced a Mercury retrograde that has been this I don't even have a word for it, but there might be a groan in there somewhere. somewhere.
Yes,
Ah.
it's been a tricky Mercury retrograde.
Yeah. So the second the sun steps out of there, Mercury will still be in its domicile, but there will be we'll be leaning back to Venus, which is interesting because we were leaning on Venus and the sun during Leo season. So there's sort of this, there was this reprieve with Mercury retrograde and Mercury, and then we're kind of coming back to Venus territory. And as we were talking about in Gray and I, when we did our Venus retrograde episode and did a look ahead at the last half of 2023, there's something about this fall that is really just relationally oriented with Venus and her moves and these eclipses, the back-to-back Venus eclipses. And then in Scorpio season, we're going to have Mars complete its synodic cycle with the sun. So there's a big Mars story there. So the relationship planets are lit up this fall. And so we're going to get our Venus dose here first.
Yes.
So one of the things, just a quick lunar overview before we jump in our full on treatment here. We are coming out of as Rachel and I are speaking right now, the Virgo new moon hasn't happened, but when Libra season starts, we'll be under that Virgo new moon that was trine Uranus. I'll just bring that up since I'm talking about it right now. There's a Virgo new moon trine Uranus there, and right before Mercury station direct. So we have this signature that is going to be underway for a good portion of Libra season. We're going to have, it's interesting, right before Libra season starts, we have a first quarter in Sagittarius, but it'll be the second first quarter in Sagittarius, because last month we had a 0-degree one, and this time we get a 29-degree one, which is interesting to me, thinking about pushing off from the Sag territory, both on critical degrees, but one's opening and one's sort of wrapping up. So that's intriguing. So we'll get a feel for that when Libra season starts, but we're going to have an always exciting full moon in Aries. And Venus is going to be doing something on that day, which we'll definitely cover. And of course, the solar eclipse in Libra, which is going to be conjunct the South Node. So this is a South Node eclipse, and we're going to have cardinal quarters. So whenever cardinal energy is involved, we've already kind of covered this, but there is a movement in life. There is pushing along. There is a dynamicism. They're dynamics. There's dynamics going along here. We also have Pluto stationing direct during Libra season, and that's going to be a hotspot planet at play. There's going to be a little chunk of time that Rachel and I are going to talk about that is Pluto City.
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
We'll get there. We'll get there.
We'll get there.
Yeah,
this is a teaser. This is a teaser.
Exactly.
And then we have Mercury, who's going to be in Virgo and Libra. Venus is going to be Leo and Virgo, and then Mars will be in Libra and Scorpio. So we have a lot more movement with the personal planets too. So that being said, let us get into our Mercury. Why you're just like, words just totally escape me for some reason. Let's get into our forecast here. Oh, Mercury. Okay. So I think it's because I've been trying to take timestamps for YouTube. And so what happens is every time I want to segue into the next thing, half of my brain is trying to tell you I'm segueing into the next thing, and the other half is trying to count the minutes that are on that's really what's going on here. Is my Mars in Gemini is trying to do two things at one time. And normally it works, but
Mercury, and Mercury is the ruler of your Mars, so Mercury's like, nope, you will need to focus on one thing at a time.
Literally just pause, just speechless, which is never the case for Mars and Gemini. So
All right. So let us start our forecast here. So Libra season will technically start on Friday, September 22nd at 11:50 p.m. Pacific. So for most of you in the world, it's going to happen on the 23rd and Saturday. But Rachel and I are over here clinging to the Pacific Ocean, and we have a just sliding in at the end of Friday there. So as I mentioned before, we were coming up that first quarter moon in Sagittarius. And so we do have this first quarter energy. So there's more of a, that heat coming in just in general with the lunar cycle. So it's not like it'll be a sleepy start. I think we are going to be in the mix there. But a couple other things that we have going on in this time frame and this weekend is we have Mars over there in Libra. So we have this other planet hanging out here in Libra, who's not necessarily, but in both Mars and the Sun, their experience of Libra is not their normal bag,
Right.
Not
Yeah,
their norm.
Mars. I once told a client. I told a client that Mars and Libra was like John Lennon on a battlefield. You know, Mars and Libra. Libra being the sign of negotiation, the sign of peace. Mars being the sign of conflict, of setting up boundaries and protecting our boundaries, and Mars is also transiting. Mars relates to what's motivating us.
Yeah.
What do we care about? And when Mars is in Libra, a lot of times some of our passion energy, anger energy, it comes out sideways. And you see this where there can be a buildup of anger and that can lead to like fights breaking out at sports games and things like that. It's like we need to have really clear direction for where we focus our anger, or it can be expressed in a way that you might not be happy about.
Yeah, it's things about the just the diversion or the deflection onto other people. That is like the road rage incident where that the people are mad at the person that might have cut them off, but they're not mad at that person. It's like everything, it's just people in general, or some relationship in their life, or some sort of dynamic that is unfair, or they've gotten a raw deal around. And
Right.
then it ends up getting deflected to people that maybe don't deserve it, or happen to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, or just have some sort of interaction, right? Think about Libra being interaction just in general. Some sort of interaction that just rubs you the wrong way. And then there you are. So it can, yeah.
I was just going
Go
to
ahead.
add that with Mars opposite Chiron, that adds to it. Because Chiron is going to reflect or bring up for us that opposition, reminds us of every time things haven't been fair, someone we love has been treated unjustly, or there's injustice in the world, or capitalism is unjust, and so that opposition really fires up our desire to right the bigger wrongs that we experience. But it can also sort of bring up for us our own personal experiences of pain. And so that opposition, I think, it really takes us through that first part of Libra season. That opposition is something that really colors our experience of the end of September.
Yeah. And it's such an interesting configuration because, I mean, obviously Mars and meeting Chiron in that tense aspect is going to be a little crunchy. It's going to, anytime you have an opposition, there's other people involved, or at least a shadow aspect of yourself, right? There's always a projection or something outside, or seemingly outside. But it's really fascinating because it corresponds coincides, that's the word I'm looking for, coincides with Venus, who is also in exact trine with
Yes.
Chiron, and she has done a three-way dance with this planet through her retrograde. So there is the crunchiness of the Mars aspect, but then there's also this Venus, this workable Venus point with it too, all while Mercury is also trining Jupiter as well. So which can definitely, to play to Rachel's point there, and things getting kind of steamy and worked up, Mercury trine Jupiter, it's like, oh, we can see our bigger picture, we got this wider view, but it can also ramp up all of our, our perceptions and really dig our heels in too. When I think about Jupiter and in Taurus, like if we have a particular position that we are fixated on, especially if you think about, the detail oriented Mercury in Virgo. And so if we are like flowing with we're right, and we are at crossroads with other people and how they think that we should act, or wondering how we should act in the world with other people. I mean, no shoulds, but this is maybe some internal dialogue that's going on. This Mercury Jupiter, which is also its last trine with Jupiter, is an interesting configuration during this particular time, just because obviously things are going to be blown up a little bit, especially in the mind.
Right. Yeah. And I think that transit points to real, like if we can see the big picture and we can see, our perspectives are blown up, then we can also come up with creative solutions for some of the conflicts that we experience in our personal lives, or some of the conflicts that we're witness to in the world. So I think it's just a lot of really big energy, and we're not even through the middle of Libra season. I mean, I'm thinking Libra season is going to be one of the biggest, like most cathartic times of the year, because of the eclipses, because planets are stationing, the outer planets are still retrograde, Venus is still in its shadow for part of the time, and so there's this feeling that everything that we've experienced this year builds up to October. And with that Mars opposition, with the Mercury Jupiter trine, with the Pluto, I'm just going to say Pluto.
It's in there.
With Pluto, it's like there's a moment of if we don't take action, life is going to act for us. And sometimes like that can be like opening a door to a new job. I mean, action is not all, catharsis can be really exciting. So I think there are, breakthrough opportunities.
No, I really like that, because I was experiencing something like that recently. And I think this is the, sometimes the issue with Mars in an air sign, where you can get through the whole thing without actually doing anything, because your mind is focused on what it is it's going to do, without there actually being concrete action to put things in place. And I know sometimes I can get a lot of anxiety especially if there's something that's on my plate and I haven't taken the initiative yet. But I've thought about it so much and I haven't taken the initiative yet, for whatever reason. Sometimes it's just because I haven't had time, sometimes because maybe there's some sort of emotional barrier behind it and I haven't been able to get to that, whatever it is that's going to maybe give me the courage or the just the oomph to take a risk and go do it. And there is such a catharsis when the action is taken, right? And I start, right? And I start and I'm in it and I'm like not thinking about it anymore. I'm doing it. Yeah. And it feels good.
Yep, absolutely. And I think you bring up a really good point too, and that is that Libra, because we're talking about balance and because we're talking about the sign of the scales, one of the challenges when the sun is in Libra is that it can be hard to know, what do I want? It can be hard, like making a decision. I mean, I don't know anything about this, so I
Not
can't speak
speaking from
experience.
experience.
But I heard from friends that if we are kind of waffling between two different choices, should I stay, should I go? I think that under kind of a stereotypical Libra sun time, it can be difficult to make that decision. But now with all this other support, it's not an arduous process. It is just know what we know. And that knowing, it's like we can't argue it, like many times air sign suns you can. It's like you can't justify it, you can't argue it. It's like you just have to, it's like the knowing fills you to a point where you want to take action.
Yeah. And I think that's really going to help with Venus being out of her, inward cycle and ruling that sun and Mars both. So there's something to be said about the journey that's already, the summer journey that we've already been on, and it brings us to this turning of the wheel moment. And Saturday the 23rd will probably be especially interesting, only because that Capricorn moon is going to be making a T-square with Mars and Chiron. So just put a little mark on your calendar, just a little, like, can be a little, could be one of those days where you're like, what is going on? Why is this happening? Why do I feel this way? And that's not a bad or a good thing. And, those are all subjectives, but there's just a little more heat, and impetus in the air there. So, and what's interesting about that too is, Mercury is getting ready to make its trine to Jupiter that we were talking about earlier. And that's actually going to happen on, I believe on Monday, early Monday will be the case. Let me get this up more AM.
The 23rd.
Oh, yeah. So, where were we at? I had it at like 11:50 because of the ingress. And I'm like, that's just too late. It's too late in the day to see the generality of the day. But let's get our, Mercury is in Virgo. Let's get exact here. Oh yeah. So really early in the morning, we'll have that Mercury piece. But what's interesting about this is we kind of have this build up in the weekend that we were just talking about, and Mercury and Jupiter kind of kicking off that Monday. But other than the moon doing its thing, which is always important, right? We're feeling the moon constantly. That's just as important as any other planet. We're really just on the lead up to the Aries full moon that's happening that Friday on the 29th of September. So we're going to go through that Aquarius cycle, the interesting Pisces cycle. It always baffles me, Rachel, the Pisces to Aries.
Yeah, it's like you could not have more of a contrasting emotional experience, because the moon is our emotional experience. And I always find when the moon's in Pisces, I'm very sensitive to the moon. You probably are too, just being a Cancer, and I have the moon right on my ascendant. And when the moon's in Pisces, it is an emotion. It's like waterworks time, and it's like you get very sentimental. It can be easy to take things personally. And then the moon enters Aries, and everybody's like, honk, let's talk about the road rage. Let's go.
Yeah, let's go. I know.
Yeah.
It makes when the Pisces moon comes around, it's always like, And for me, that's a 5th house transit too. So, so, it has sort of that, oh, well, you know what, maybe I'll make some music. Maybe I'll just kind of lay low. Maybe I'll end up doing some shopping that I shouldn't be doing because I'm emotionally deflecting somewhere. But I give myself a little, it's almost like it's my hall pass.
Yes,
When
I
the
love
Pisces
that.
moon comes around, it's like, it's my hall pass for a couple of days. Cause I know Aries is coming and then the fire is going to come back in me. I'm going to be able to haul ass and get what I need to be done. But especially, well, Saturn hanging out in Pisces these days, it has a little bit of a, a little melancholy right on entry, but
and then it kind of ends with Neptune.
yeah,
it's like you go from melancholy to I could live my dream.
yeah.
Or I wish I were living my dream.
Or I am just going to escape into this couch and eat a whole bag of popcorn and watch this Netflix documentary.
Right. Right. It's so funny when I was first learning astrology in college. I was like really intensely studying astrology in college. I did this exercise where I would look at the moon. That every day I would just take kind of notes on what was happening when the moon was in each sign. And I was waiting tables at the time, and I knew I could predict like clockwork when we'd have busy times, when anytime the moon was in a fire sign or in an air sign. It had a certain quality. We were usually busier when the moon was in an air sign. And anytime the moon was in Pisces, there would be people would linger, people would stay, people would eat the ice cream. We weren't as busy. But you could count on like either really good tips or like not great tips at all. Like people like not paying. It was like always like this really kind of like watery, wishy-washy sort of vibe. So that was my experience. And then it got into Aries and everybody came in and watched sports,
That's
and it was
funny.
usually pretty busy. So that's my experience with the Pisces to Aries.
It's true. It's like, well, I mean, think about it. It's like with an air moon, people want to socialize. People want to be out. They want to be about. There's more, fire and air just in itself is more outgoing. And so it's just natural to be a little busier, and people are out and about during those signs. Water signs. Yeah, water signs I've noticed with the being in a restaurant, because I've been doing some tarot readings at a tarot themed restaurant we have here in San Diego. And so I only work maybe like once a week or something, sometimes twice a week depending on my schedule. But it's always interesting to see which night I fall on because it's the Cancer moon. Always, people are at home. They are, just water.
Those were the
not
worst
so much.
nights for tips. People don't want to be out, or it's a lot of families that come in and they don't want to spend a lot of money.
Virgo moon. If you want tips on a Virgo moon, you ain't gonna get them.
Unless you work for like a macrobiotic restaurant or something.
Perhaps so, but it's always, I always feel like people are much more conscious. Same with Capricorn moon, there's a little more reservation around how much to give, right? Versus when the moon is in aspect to Jupiter or in Sagittarius. Or even in Pisces, like you said, there's more generosity that comes out during those times. So when I put in like when I can work, I'm always looking at the schedule. I'm like, okay, look at that the moon's squaring Jupiter there. Maybe
I love it. I love it.
That. Yeah. So it's true. It's absolutely true how that works.
And the Aquarius and Gemini moons were better for tips usually than the Libra moons. So even though Libra is very, one of the social air signs, the Aquarius moon was a good night to work. I remember that. And this is more than 20 years ago. So, but it was, it was a fun experiment that really taught me a lot about astrology. And how it gave me a real visceral experience of each sign as the moon was moving through it. So that's
So
so
if,
cool that you have
yeah,
that you do that too.
if you're out there in the service world and you work on tips, think about some of the things that we're talking about here, especially if you're able to pick your own schedule.
Right.
And because tracking the lunar cycle and when people will be out and how generous they might be is really advantageous. I mean, we can't control everything, of course, but there are, if anything, it'll be like Rachel said, it's a good experiment because that's how you learn about astrology. So
Right.
so that being said, so we have this sort of Pisces energy lingering in the middle of the week, September 27th, the 28th. And then we get to Friday, the 29th, and we have very early actually in the morning, or decently early here, at least on the Pacific coast. Oh, actually really early, 2:57 a.m. I will be sleeping at the apex of this moon. Well, who knows? A Mars ruled moon, you can be tossing and turning, and it's not
it's an
as,
insomnia moon, right?
yeah.
And
So,
this one in particular, this is, I think this moon really kind of pushes us into eclipse season. I mean, I really think the Libra new moon does, but
yeah.
the Libra new moon that sets us into the 2-week eclipse period. But this one kind of builds the storyline. So the plot is thickening right now.
The plot is thick with with this with this full moon, because we have, first of all, we have Venus, who is making it to her third and final square with Uranus. And so here we have the ruler of the sun in this very tense and exciting position that could be finishing off a storyline that's been with all of us since Venus went retrograde. But this is a hot spot transit, absolutely. So that, and the fact that the ruler of the lunation, Mars in Libra, is getting really close to the South Node. It is about to be sucked into the drain that that is the South Node there. So we have that going on, and we also have Mercury who's trining into. So this is actually big too in relation to Uranus, because Mercury is trining into Uranus. And if you recall, at the beginning of Mercury's retrograde cycle, it did not perfect the trine with Uranus. It stationed retrograde before it was able to do so. Much like the retrograde that happened in Taurus earlier in the year, it almost made it to Uranus, but it didn't quite do it yet. So there's something about this intellectual or perceptual breakthrough or communicative breakthrough that is culminating at this full moon too, especially since Mercury is about to leave the shadow, and then the whole coming days, which we will talk about here shortly, Mercury is going to be on a whole journey itself. Mercury is definitely going to be giving us some things. So, I mean, what about this full moon just jumps out at you right away?
Yeah, I think one thing that that jumps out at me is that this is the 4th supermoon in the final 4 of a series.
Oh.
Yeah, and supermoons, these lunations, they make more dramatic movements of the ocean waters, which we tend to have more earthquakes, more volcanoes, more seismic activity. And because Venus is in a square to Uranus, because Uranus is involved here, I think we could see, and it's really unfortunate, all of the seismic activity that we've had. But looking back in the 2000s, we had, last time we had Aries, the North Node in Aries, we saw tsunami, we saw the big tsunami in Indonesia. We had more seismic activity, more damaging earthquakes. And so I'm a very optimistic astrologer. I'm not a doomsday astrologer. So I'm not saying, oh, it's going to be awful. But, you know, we just had a 5.1 here in Ojai, and the one in Morocco, the 6.8 just happened in Morocco and devastated that community. And it was very destructive. And I don't think we're finished with earthquakes, with hurricanes. I think nature is still balancing itself out. And my sense is that it's a great reminder for all of us just to have our plans together. Like, you know, think about what you would pack if there were to be a natural disaster. Kind of, this is the time to organize yourself before something happens. Where, you know, if nothing's happened where you live, this is a great time to just be very proactive. Now,
which is an Aries word.
It is Aries word. And now on a positive note, you know, I think that this lunation is great for pioneering a change in your life. Like this, look at all the support for that.
Yeah.
There's so much, and the conjunction between the sun and Pallas is another thing that really stands out to me here, because Pallas, she's the goddess of craft, she's the goddess of wisdom, and so she helps us fine-tune the way that we make our contribution to the world. And Pallas is also very interested in justice, and so this is the time when you can, you know, speak out if someone's mistreating you, or if something's not fair in your life, and usually you just let it go, let it go, let it go. Or, you know, or you see someone littering and, you know, you think they need to stop littering, and you let it go and you let it go. This is one of those lunations where you have the motivation and the courage to speak up and say, this is not right. We need to change this. And so I think this is a real point of power for us, both in like our legislative sessions, as well as in our personal lives.
Yeah. And well, as you're speaking, I'm thinking about the cards that are associated with these with the luminary placements, you know, thinking about the Two of Wands as the moon placement, which is this setting off on a new journey and making you know, taking dominion over your life and expanding your world beyond what it's been, and yeah, setting off essentially. And so when you think about what you were just saying about being able to sort of kind of step up and make some big changes in your life, and which is interesting because a lot of times we make big changes in our life because there's a lack of balance.
Right.
And we need to come back into that sense of balance and harmony with ourselves by having the courage in order to initiate the change. And Aries loves change. Aries is like, give me a new beginning. What are you waiting for? Right.
Exactly.
So it's, and especially with Venus being in that square to Uranus and Mercury being the same. And there's that kind of liberating energy, that freedom orienting energy, that catalytic energy, essentially. And it makes me think of too with this is all and I don't work with Eris that much consciously, but there is something to be said about the North Node literally by a minute conjunct Eris, and you know, the goddess of discord, which could be absolutely intense when we're talking about some of the things you brought up earlier with potential for seismic activity, natural disruption that could happen. But also playing discord in our lives is what also allows us to change and move into new territory that we wouldn't otherwise if we weren't able to disrupt. So there's a really strong kind of disruptive vibe that is to this, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. It just kind of depends on you know, where you're at and what the situation is.
Right. And I'm so excited that you brought up Eris, because Eris to me is the star of this lunation, but she's the star of all of this, the start of October. On October 4th, Mars is going to directly oppose Eris, conjoin the North Node or South Node, oppose the North Node. And here's another important thing. So in 2020 and 2021, Pluto was at that 24-degree point of Capricorn squaring Eris. And every time that transit perfected, there was a big demonstration for Black Lives Matter, or for, the anti-maskers having their, like cry for freedom. So we saw that square play out in a real public way, in a real political way. And, this was also a time when statues were coming down that were relics of, a racist culture, or that were relics of colonialism. And so there was a lot of that kind of disruption for social change, for progress, for moving us forward, and for having conversations that were important for reshaping the way that our culture, that our country sees itself, but also the way that our culture expresses itself. And so when Mars hits this point, this is the first time that it's come to this point since 2021. And so it's going to be activating that square. And even though Pluto's moved out of orb, because Pluto is still retrograde, right? Is
Yeah.
Pluto? Yeah, Pluto's
Mhm.
retrograde until a little bit later.
Well, until not too long after this,
yeah,
actually, because
yeah.
it'll be stationing. But still,
Right.
it's
That's right.
close.
Oh, yes, that's right. On the 10th, it does. Okay.
Mhm.
Thank you. But because Pluto is going retrograde, it's moving toward, but Eris is retrograde, but Pluto is moving faster. So it's moving toward that square. Mars and the North and South node axis is lining up in that square. And so we are going to see, some reminders of anything that we didn't finish in 2020 and 2021. And so I think this could be a time when we're looking at debates, when people are getting ready for, anyone who's campaigning, getting ready. I think we could see more with, with the legal issues surrounding Trump and his allies. I think there's going to be a lot of, like you said, discordant energy, but it's not absolutely disruptive or destructive. It's more of, oh yeah, we forgot about this. We got to talk about this too. This is so important. And so I think that's a really exciting, I think that's an exciting
exciting little piece to it, a not so little piece to it, I guess. It's actually rather large when you think about it. And I
right.
mean, with just the nature of just social justice, and anytime Venus and Uranus are getting together, there is usually an element somewhere on this globe where people are demonstrating for the change that they would like to see. And we think about the writer's strike that's going on right now. And I wonder if there'll be some sort of turnaround in that area around this time too, just because obviously you can't, you can only hold out for so long. And this is a full moon that's about new conditions, right? Something has apex to the fullest it can possibly get. And the only way to then move the energy beyond that is a change or a beginning or the next leg, or something totally fresh and new that has to be drawn up in order to move on from that place. So yeah, or at least just the full, kind of like what you were saying, Rachel, like this being almost the portal opener of the eclipse season, that apex is this, what can seemingly be crisis. I mean, Aries full moons to me always have some sort of like crisis point for a lot of people. And sometimes crisis looks different for everybody. And it just depends, but it gets critical. It's heightened. It's cardinal fire, so thinking about what comes to a head at this particular time, and then just all the activity yeah, all the activity ever that leads up to the solar eclipse, and then through obviously the next lunar eclipse, wrapping up the Taurus Scorpio cycle. There's something about that kicks it off.
Yes, it does.
Kick off here.
Yeah. And if I could just reflect one more thing about the Aries. So another big theme with Eris and Aries and the Pluto, reproductive rights have been a very significant, prominent theme. And with Venus being the dispositor of the sun, with it being square Uranus, with Eris being in Aries, like really holding court this whole week, I think that there could be some real movements toward, I mean, we see the presidential elections that are happening in Mexico, and the candidates wanting to make reproductive health and abortion legal. I think we're going to see a lot of conversation, probably both polarities, so like, because Libra is polarized in many ways. We're going to see the polarities of that subject here in America for sure, but I think in other parts of the world as well.
Yeah, these are individual rights, right? And individual rights being at this point of change, any planet that's in it's in a debilitated state can't be consistent. And consistency isn't always what we want, right? Like that's the beauty of it. So thinking about these individual rights coming to this place of the sign of, justice, and then having Venus being in this square, this opening square with Uranus, I could see that definitely being something that is brought up or turned a corner around, or at least just inflamed once again to where it's not on the back burner.
Right.
So mark your calendars, September 29th, Friday. It's a lot, the big old Aries full moon going on here. That's let us talk about, so let's kind of switch our story to Mercury, actually, because Mercury is going to go on a little journey of its own here past this full moon. And so on Sunday, so October begins, October 1st, Mercury is basically going to leave its shadow phase, which is great news for all the people that have been riddled by this Mercury retrograde here. But it's going to do the dance that the sun's been through, that Mars has been through. It's going to oppose Neptune, trine Pluto, and then move in to Libra. So, I mean, Rachel, what do you think about just how going from an opposition to Neptune and then a trine with Pluto? I mean, with Mercury, but just with all the planets, it's such an interesting combination.
Isn't it? It is really interesting. To me, what it feels like, and I noticed this when the sun hasn't made that transition yet. I'm feeling into the future, but I think what this anything opposite Neptune is disillusionment. It is, I really thought things were going to happen this way and they didn't, or being confused, being muddled. And there's a gift in that opposition, and that gift is we have to feel our way through. And so we, that, and then the trine to Pluto is, I've gone through the disillusionment, I've faced my disappointments, I've seen what's real and what's not. My bubble has burst. Any bubble of illusion that we have. And then the Pluto is, okay, good. I'm great. I'm gonna take the reins of my life. I'm gonna direct them in a new way, and I'm back in my power. So it's a time of revelation that comes like after walking in a fog.
Yeah. And but we have to walk the fog to get there, because we're not going to come to any revelation unless we go through this maybe uncertainty period, or the bubble popping period, or that's just, or even sometimes that intuition that just well, I mean, I think about it, Uranus is a little more strike you out of nowhere, but Neptune, well, that's the thing. So this is actually a whole lead up of a trine to Uranus, an opposition to Neptune, a trine to Pluto. And so maybe there is a catalyst with the full moon that then sends you into this more spiritual, what does it all mean? Oh, maybe I'm doubting myself, or is this possible? Is it not? And we go through the Neptune haze because we had a catalyst, or we had something that awakened us to go into this almost liminal perception space to then come out on the other side of empowerment. I mean, that's what Pluto can do for us. It can give us a lot of, oh God, when Mars was over there, I'm like, can you just lay off the work? I'm like, it was just throwing work.
Right.
Those earth trines are just throwing work at everyone.
I know, that's exactly how it felt. You are so right. Yeah, Mercury also, if there anyone who is going through a Neptune transit, if Neptune transiting Neptune, if you have any Virgo, late degree Virgo placements, or Sagittarius or Gemini or Pisces, if you have any points between 25 and 27 of a mutable sign, Mercury can be the messenger of a long-term transit, which means you think everything's, you're in your Neptune storyline, which is, oh my gosh, I'm having all these revelations and I'm so creative and I don't know what I'm doing about this area of my life. Mercury comes in and says, hey, here's some guidance, here's some information, here's something you couldn't see before, but that revelation can lead you to cleaning up a mess in your life, or to having some clarity where you didn't have before. So even so, though sometimes Mercury's messages can feel like a blow to your ego, like, oh, I wasn't expecting that. They're always, the phrase I love for Mercury transits like that is the truth will set you free. So that's ultimately what those Neptune transits want us to do, is to be free from our illusions, or from the ego's, hard crystallized expectations.
Yeah, Lord knows it's got those. I'm like, we gotta let those, and that might be part. I love that you brought up that word, because maybe that's when we are looking across the pond at our expectations or our idealizations, and having been waken up to them in some way. And maybe we just need to take a pause. Sometimes you just, and that's the thing too, is like Neptune loves to diffuse us in some way. And so it can feel like Mercury retrograde again, just because it's like, oh, now Neptune's in the mix. But there could be something about having sort of this mental time out to sort of play in this space, or just be, connected to it before. And then as it dissipates, then you get to the Pluto action, and there is just this intensity of focus or clarity, especially just, Pluto being at the end of a sign these days. There's always, I feel like Pluto loves to like put a finishing bow on a lot of things, but
it totally does. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, but especially when it's at late degrees of sign now, that's really the case. Which is actually a little ironic and perfect, that this is the day that our Tarot of Her campaign ends on October 2nd. So when
can we have just a pause for a sales pitch? Can I see some of the cards? Because I see them right behind you. Can we actually take a commercial break? And I'm so excited about this deck, and I can't wait to have it in my hands. When you first posted it, I love the idea. I love the artwork. And so, so if we could
we got some, of course, the first one that came up was the 9 of Leaves, or that would be the swords. And so we have a woman with some cacti. That's there. We have, I'm like, see if I have some that are aligned to the transits that we are talking about here. Actually, I have the 3 of Leaves here, which is part of the Libra trilogy there, and a lot of times you see the Three of Swords, which is the heart with the three swords stabbed through it, which is always so grim. No one ever likes to get that card. But there's something about, so we kind of have to take a little different take on it, where I've written about acceptance, when life gives us things that are difficult to integrate, that might give us, suck the energy out of our heart in some way. A lot of times the only way to get through it is through acceptance for what your life looks like, what is, I feel like this is Rachel and I's card right now. This is actually another Libra oriented card, the Four of Leaves. And this is about
I love that.
The intermission.
That's the card that we need right now, and I love that it's coming up right now during this this commercial break for the tarot.
Yeah, literally the intermission. We are in intermission. We were talking about Mercury and Neptune being the intermission, and so it is it's just a wonderful deck, and it's coming soon. So if you feel so called, come on over to either tarotofher.com. It can take you to the campaign, or to Kickstarter. We got chosen as a project we love by Kickstarter. So
congratulations.
Yeah. So we are boosted in the ranks, which is exciting. But we're going to be ending on October 2nd at 6:19 p.m., right when the moon, Mercury, and Pluto are in a grand trine with one another. So finishing bow. I'm like,
I love it. I love it.
Help me put the finishing bow on, please. So
everyone needs to share it. Everyone needs to support it. You can give at any level. Even if you don't want to give at one of the suggested levels, you can click in and just give at any level that you want to.
Yeah. And you can just donate. You don't even have to get anything.
Yes. It's so important.
It is. And it's amazing to think that we can put a project on the space and, people come out of the woodwork, people people you don't know, and they believe in what you're doing and are willing to pledge money towards it for something that will be in your hands in 6 months' time. That speaks to just community. And people, just the nature of people just really wanting to help others, which sometimes we forget about. We have a world that's really driven with individualism and, I'm out to get me, but really there's a lot of people in this world that are very supportive of other people and want to see everyone succeed. So, go community.
Hey. I love that. That is really, you're speaking to where we're moving with, Pluto's entry into Aquarius. I think we're all seeing with going back to Pluto at the last degrees of Capricorn, we're seeing the real harm of capitalism, Capricorn being industries, being corporations, being, that kind of power structure. And so if you want to be a part of the future, you need to go and support Tarot of Her on Kickstarter.
I love it. Thanks, Rachel. It's nothing like a good a good pledge from a friend. So, I believe in it.
Yeah,
I believe you. I believe in it. And so it's funny because we have 21 days left to go as we record this right here. So in every day it's just like, all right, well, you gotta, because it's weird. It's vulnerable to be out there in a creative space and you're not like actually having it like finished and it's now available. It's like, no, it's dependent upon something outside of yourself. It's dependent upon the goodwill and generosity of others. And that takes faith and that takes belief. And so, yeah, it's an interesting experience, but one I wouldn't change for the world. It's pretty exciting. It actually kind of blows my mind that we can do this. Like you wouldn't I don't see anything like this like 20 years ago, 30 years ago, like that just, yeah. So anyways, I digress. So our Mercury story isn't over yet. So Mercury's gonna move on. It's gonna do its thing with Pluto on Tuesday. And then it's going to move into Libra on actually the 4th. Here it crosses over. So now the Libra party is really getting started here, isn't it? We got Mercury, the Sun, Mars, South Node. We got Pallas hanging out there. So yeah, so party in Libra. So what do you think about Mercury in Libra? Just as definitely a different vibe than Mercury in Virgo.
Absolutely. Yes. So this is my natal Mercury placement. And and a couple of things. First of all, I think people forget that Libra, or not people forget, but when people think about Libra, they think about relationships, they think about indecision, they think about some of those things. But Libra is an intellectual, it's an air sign, which means it's very cerebral. And so when you have Mercury in Libra, it's less about the analytical details organization of Virgo, and it's more about understanding like systems, understanding negotiation. It's about tapping into philosophy. It's about thinking in a way that is relational. And so it's drawing connections to things that we didn't draw before. So this is a great time to get your book club back up and running, or to start a podcast, especially once Mercury gets out of its post-shadow phase. This is a time to be having, if you have any mediation schedule, this is a great time for that. To be teaching a course, to be doing any air sign focused thing. I know a lot of like philosophers and philosophy professors and professors who have Mercury in Libra or significant Libra placements. And so I think your Mercury is going to be functioning at a pretty high level, even though it's not like exalted in Libra, for example.
Yeah. It's got dignity in air, right? It has triplicity. So it likes its Aries zone, and it kind of makes sense. I mean, of course, Mercury is going to like to float through the air and think about concepts and ideas and patterns and just that creative spark too, right? Especially since Venus is still in Leo, tail end of Leo. She's only got a handful of days left, but all those planets are going to have that Leo boost behind it, which to me feels very a creative vibe. As well. And I think Mercury, just Virgo in general, can be shyer in nature. And so now when it comes to just being able to speak your mind and being out amongst people, it's really going to kick up the social energy, at least for that weekend, the weekend of the 6th, 7th, and 8th, when Venus is still in Leo. There might be sort of this social renaissance that almost happens, especially after the interesting Venus retrograde summer, which was
and Venus gets out of her shadow on the 7th, so she's not only moving forward, she's like rocking after the 7th. So I know I'm kind of fast forward.
I think you're right where we need to be. That's perfect. Yeah, that's true. And so that's big news as well, right? We've got Mercury out of its place. Venus is now crossing the threshold of her retrograde situation. And it's one of those things I feel like enjoy it while it's here, because Venus is about to go through some things again here, but really take in this weekend, October 6th, 7th, 8th, because I think it'll be a nice reprieve socially. We also have a last quarter moon in Cancer that's actually taking place on that Friday, which is, as we just talked about earlier, but Cancer moons and like being out and social. Well, maybe you have a party at your home and you're inviting people into your sanctuary and stuff. But that's an interesting kind of turn of lunar energy to that more emotional, protective, just intuitive, caring, that the familial, that connection. It's a different type of connection. I mean, both Cancer and Libra want connections. There, one's a little more, I'll connect with everyone, and another one's like, I will connect who matters to me, you know?
Oh my gosh, you just described my relationship with my wife, who's a Cancer, and I'm a Libra. You just described our relationship right there.
Perfect. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
that's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so true. It's so true. Yeah, so I love that idea of the dinner party, or the, you know, the inviting a few close friends over. Yeah, that's, or just having a romantic night. You know, these are two signs that love cuddling. And not, even if not like in the physical sense of the word, like the closeness of um of knowing that you're cherished.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. So there's something about kind of coming back into the heart, and
Mhm.
more of this this feeling space, that's going to be turning a corner on the 6th. And it just dawned on me, actually. I went to a social, a purpose-driven party yesterday,
Oh,
which
cool.
was a community, like a free community event, that's put on, where, yeah, you just basically go, there's a couple speakers, you go connect with people, you go in breakout groups and kind of do a mastermind session, which was fun. But we met this guy there that does something called, can't remember the name of his nonprofit, but it's a beach cleanup. And so once a month, he hosts a beach cleanup here at Pacific Beach, where you do yoga for 45 minutes.
Great.
So any San Diego people out there, just heads up, yoga for 45 minutes, and then you spend 45 minutes with everybody cleaning up the beach, and especially like plastics. And the last time they did it, they collected in 45 minutes 250 pounds of plastic and trash.
That's
And
heartbreaking.
I know. And so we're going to the next one, which is going to be October 7th, which is under this Cancer moon. So here we are, going to go be social with the community and other people, but it's under this protective element of protecting the waters in the beach, and putting the work in, I guess.
Ooh, I
So
love that.
yeah, that's it just came to me right now. I was like, oh yeah, that's on that day. Oh,
Uh-huh,
perfect.
uh-huh.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. That's really good. That is the right kind of manifestation for the synergy. It's connecting with a purpose. And how great that you're doing that, and that organization is there. There's a beach cleanup here on in this area on the 23rd. So I'm planning on going on that too. So yeah,
That's awesome.
so
Let's
great.
clean up those beaches,
Yep.
girl. We gotta.
That's right.
We need to clean up those beaches.
Uh-huh.
I feel like this is going to be definitely a continued trend with Saturn and Pisces, because there's lots of work to do there.
Yeah, for sure.
So let us move on to so the next thing, let's continue Venus's journey, because she is the one that is about to make some changes. Well, actually two things. So we have, well, now that I think about it, picking up trash on the beach, as Mars squares Pluto.
Right.
That's always a fun time. So basically Mars is going to be on the 8th. So Sunday the 8th, we have a few things going on. We got Mars squaring Pluto. And of course, actually on that Saturday right before that, Cancer moon is going to light this T-square this up. So every time the moon, especially from Cancer, opposes Pluto, there's always sort of this, there's just it just comes up upon us, and there might not even be any words for it. There can just be only feelings, where there's a lot of intensity at play. But this time around, we just had this literally the other day, like two days ago or something, or no, I think it was yesterday, here before we're recording here. And I remember my partner was like, he was just in this mood, like just just didn't want to go to the event that we were planning to go to. And he's a very Libra moon. He's all like, let me go socialize. 11th house Libra moon, get him to community. And that man is happy. But he was in that Pluto space and was just like, But then the moon moved into Leo, kind of cleared it out, and he was so happy by the end of the day. It was like it just lit up. But we're always feeling that once a month with Pluto still being there. So just keep in mind that Mars is going to be squaring Pluto at this time. So it might be just a little extra intense on that Saturday, just when it comes to feeling and irritation or activity, or maybe making a difference, like cleaning up the beach. But either way, it's a very dynamic configuration. So just wanted to make everyone aware of that.
Yeah. And it's a good time too, whenever the moon's in Cancer, we can be more sensitive to other people's emotions.
Yeah.
And sometimes when we feel vibes that we don't have words for, or we don't have a context for, it can be really easy to think, oh my gosh, he's mad at me, or she's mad at me, or I've done something wrong, or why don't they like me? This is something that we all experience at, during certain lunations or certain transits. But it's always helpful not to take things too seriously, and not to take things personally, rather. We want to take things seriously, but a lot of times people are going through their own thing, and anyone's frustration might not have anything to do with you. Also, the other thing with a Cancer moon is that people want their minds to be read. So if you say what's wrong, you're going to hear nothing. So it's a good time if you feel some vibes from someone who's like frustrated or angry, or someone's driving too fast, and it's best not to hound them for answers or information, but just sit in the discomfort of, oh, someone else is feeling emotions that are hard for me to digest, or I'm feeling emotions that are hard for me to articulate. Take a few deep breaths, find that inner peace, and say, this too shall pass.
Very wise advice. Very wise advice, because we're gonna need that, especially if you're already sensitive, and especially if you want to help. I'm by nature like a helper. Like, let me help fix this. And sometimes that's not the case. You have to just be in the discomfort and the irritation and the non-solution, and it'll pass, just like you said. And a lot of times those moments are so important to our actual process, because process means processing, and in order to process something, we have to sit with maybe the gunk of it, that is not always clear, but it's what gets you to, it's the Plutonian rabbit hole that gets you through to the next place. So we have to kind of hold space for that discomfort, in order to be awakened to and empowered to what's next. So being a very social period that we keep talking about, we have to be aware of that process, and that everybody will be experiencing it, so that we can allow that to happen without taking it personally or trying to disrupt it, right? I think about Mars and Libra, like, yeah.
John Lennon on the battlefield.
Yeah.
And this is also, both the moon and Pluto are at the bendings of the nodes. We're moving toward the eclipse.
Yeah.
Everything is amplifying.
Yes.
And while I tend to be a kind of person who, if I'm in a conflict, I want to resolve it fast and get to know what's at the root of this. Sometimes pushing for a resolution before the process is finished can lead to a blow up, or to kind of further separation. And so we want to walk a really fine line over the next week, from the 7th through the 14th, while the moon is in that last and final stage, moving toward the balsamic moon. This, Georgia Stathis, is an awesome astrologer, amazing. I've learned so much from her over the years. And in her book, Pushing Through Time, she writes about the synodic cycles, and how that last quarter phase of any cycle is always the most active. It's where we've done a lot of the work of that cycle. And in this particular instance, we're talking about the lunation cycle. And so that last quarter stage is when all the activity happens. So, and that activity is leading us up to an eclipse. So things get exciting, like roller coaster ride exciting, after the 7th.
It's absolutely true. Absolutely true. So let's continue on the next curve of our roller coaster here, because we have Venus, who's going to move into Virgo on, actually it'll be on the 8th technically. We have it here on the 9th, late in the 8th. So she's going to move into Virgo, which is big news, because she has been in Leo for what seems like forever, right? Since June.
Yep, forever.
I think she has done her time in Leo, and that we're going to get a different Venus vibe. I mean, we talked about Pisces and Aries before being this great change, but there's something to be said, at least just for Venus energy, moving from Leo to Virgo. This is a sign of her fall. She's like, what is this territory that I am in, and why am I being eclipsed twice under it? That is what Venus is saying here.
Right.
But here's the thing: anybody that moves into Virgo immediately has a standoff with Saturn these days because of Saturn and Pisces. So she moves in, and she makes opposition with Saturn on the 9th. And meanwhile, we have on the 10th, we have Pluto stationing direct, which is always an intense time. And the sun, who is Venus ruled, right, is opposing Chiron. So we kind of have this interesting Monday and Tuesday, the 9th and the 10th. We have these different stories taking place. But I mean, I guess I'll just pick your brain real quick about Venus and Virgo. What's thoughts?
Venus in Virgo, I love Virgo. Is, I think, one of the most underestimated signs. Virgo is very service oriented. It is actually one of our more selfless signs. And at the same time, Virgo is, I think of Virgo as the ruler of the intestines, which is really sexy, right? But it's it's like separating what nourishes us and what provides us with well-being, and what is waste. So it's about culling through the unnecessary, picking out what belongs. And so we do that in relationships when we're talking about Venus. We also do it with our finances. And so this is a time of being very selective and maybe a little bit critical, but critical in the highest octave of the word, which is, I'm aware of what is dissatisfactory so that I can make wise choices about how I'm receiving love, how I'm welcoming love, and my experiences of relationships. So, but the Saturn opposition really colors our whole experience of Venus and Virgo, which is, that Saturn opposition can be lonely. It can be a time when maybe we've come to a decision about needing to leave a relationship, or we want to get to our all the creative ideas that we had during Venus and Leo, and we don't have time for them, or we have limitations, or we realize that we are somehow closing ourselves off to love. And so Venus in Virgo is also a time of analyzing how can I reframe my experience of all things Venus: pleasure, love, beauty, relationships, finances.
Yeah. And that's the thing with Venus in Virgo, because I love the intestines analogy there, because it is true. That's the whole purpose of Virgo, is it can kind of it takes all the nutrients and the good things out, and it can separate what isn't working in the gunk and the waste. The dross, I guess we could say.
Yes.
And so when you get Venus in a Mercury sign, right? It's good to be able to highlight those things, because it can get us to better relationships when we're able to maybe be in this place where we are able to communicate. Because the other thing too is like Venus moves into Virgo and Mercury's in Libra. So there is this it's mutual reception, not quite, because it's not actually making an aspect, but there is a reciprocity, I guess we could say, going on between the two. And so having that discerning eye with relationships, and because I feel like we always get to this place of discernment just in general with relationships when Saturn's involved, it's like, looking at the other person, you're like, and it can only be for a moment, right? But so it's almost like this kind of check-in with relational energy, and it's good to have that discernment, but we also got to be wary of being too critical and judgmental. When you put the mind too much into something that's more about magnetism and attraction, and it kind of I want to say kill Venus's spark, but it just takes it to a different direction that it's Venus isn't necessarily akin to. Because if you're thinking too much about relationships or thinking too much about what could go wrong, that's what Virgo's so great at. What could go wrong here?
It's so true. And this is why that sign emphasizes bringing order to unstructured ideas, or, bringing order to a closet, bringing order to your calendar, bringing order to your life. And oh, go ahead.
No, I think you're hitting a nail on the head here too. Just take it out of the relationship. Let's go to Libra's other favorite side of things, aesthetics.
Yes. Yeah.
So here Venus comes along and she sees Saturn, and you walk into that closet and the clothes are everywhere. You haven't been in there for it. And then all of a sudden now you got a color-coded closet. Everything is clean. It's so there could be this aesthetic energy that is pushed to the brink, where we actually do the hard work to create more beauty and order in our environment.
Right.
So she is definitely getting she's getting a little Saturn action when she moves in there. But let us so Pluto stationing direct. I mean, we've already talked a lot about Pluto, and we're going to continue to talk about Pluto, but there's just something to be said about the fact that it's stationing. Like any planet stationing, especially when it's stationing direct, Pluto is emerging.
Yeah,
Pluto is emerging.
And it's stationing on the United States Pluto. So it's not exact. Yes. It's like they're a few minutes off, but this is going to bring up all of the themes of the Pluto return, the U.S. Pluto return. So who are we as a country? And so I think this is where we're going to see a lot of the strike activity. It seems like a lot of unions are striking right now. Because Pluto's in Capricorn. Capricorn relates to capitalism, and one of Pluto's signature achievements in the time that it's been in Capricorn is raising our awareness about the discrepancies between the big gap, the wealth gap. And that's what these, that's a talking point of these all of the organizing activity right now, is how executives are getting paid these ridiculous salaries, and the workers are barely surviving or not able to make a living wage. So I think that's going to be a big theme of the Pluto station. And that'll probably be, that'll take us through the eclipse, through the October eclipses.
I think you're absolutely right about that, especially seeing Mars at the last degree of Libra, right? And even thinking back to when we were just talking about last quarter in Cancer, and it lighting up that Mars Pluto square, and Mars in Libra is fighting for that justice, fighting for that equality, in this overcoming position from Pluto too. So it's kind of got the upper hand. And, thinking about that last quarter that's leading us into the eclipse, we're talking about like basic care. We're talking about the need, like we're talking about the roof over our head and being able to have good food and just the basic necessities of care in life. So what you're saying, I think you're hitting the nail on the head as far as like a climax or a culmination to the changes and the power structures that need to be revised in order for things to resume, but B, for people to get the justice aspect. So that's exciting. I have to say that, because Mars is gonna Mars ain't stopping here. Mars is about to.
He goes into his own sign. He's very happy in Scorpio on the 11th. And this is, it's funny, I have my Mars return on like my Mars return is like 2 days after my birthday. So this I'm looking at this thinking, oh Lord, what is this gonna look like?
That sounds very motivating to me, Rachel.
I know. The Mars return is always, a feisty transit. It's pretty energizing, like you said. But but Mars in Scorpio, it's a Mars that knows how to function in the right way. And so it's not and Mars in Scorpio is very strategic, where Mars in Aries just wants to fire out like, I'm gonna start this fire, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. Mars in Scorpio is like pouncing. It's like the cat that stands and waits and waits and waits, and then the prey gets really comfortable, and then the cat goes, I got you. That's Mars in Scorpio.
Yeah. I always call it Ninja Mars.
Oh, I like
it's that. Like that. It's like, it's hiding in the shadows.
Yep.
And it's like, it'll find you at the right, and it's got all the moves. It's got all the right moves.
That's right.
But I love the cat analogy too, because it lies low. It's patient. It's not in your face. It's, it investigates. It does all its homework. It's like, it's fixed. Right. Think about the energy of just that, I'm not gonna say obsessiveness, but a lot of times, when we really have to reach a goal in our lives or an objective, we do have to be somewhat obsessed. We have to be totally focused, and especially what's our number one sort of focus energy. You would think it might be like the mind, but it's not. I feel like it's like the heart and feelings. Like when you're like like you're in your heart and your emotional self really wants something, and it's got that focus. It's got that magic manifestation power. So Ninja Mars is hot on the scene and getting ready for its synodic start next season. But that's another thing to think about with Mars moving into Scorpio, is it's actually wrapping up a 2-year cycle of Mars having had a synodic cycle in Libra. So Mars returning to Libra and all the things Rachel and I have talked about, there's sort of this return to a much longer story that's been taking place since 2021, right? So yeah. And Scorpio is much like Aries, but in a different way, is about change and transformative scenarios. So Mars ripping through Scorpio can definitely bring change to the forefront.
And yeah. And just to give dates, the 17th, November 17th is the Sun conjunct Mars.
Yeah.
So we're, like you said, we're wrapping up the cycle. And so yeah, Mars is like kind of the, if we were in a planetary race, Mars would be like number one, like headed toward the goal. And all the rest of the planets would be like, I'm catching up, I'm catching up.
And Mars is serious too, because
Yep.
Mars, much like when Venus moved into Virgo, Mars moving into Scorpio immediately trines Saturn. So, you know, the Mars Saturn story is always one of effort, determination, also frustration and obstacles. But this is a trine, so there's, you know, I feel like there's a lot of emotional oomph to get something accomplished and done, and putting in the work and doing what you gotta do, you know, like, and this is going to be from the October 11th through the 13th, you know, because Mars is a little bit of a slower mover there. Yeah, so I feel like this bodes well. Where's the moon here? And so this is interesting when you think about it, because the moon's over there hanging out in Libra, getting ready to have our solar eclipse, which I'm just going to jump to, and we can add the whole Mars Saturn dynamic in that. But we are so here, October 14th, 10:55 a.m. Here Pacific time is Saturday. We have a 21 degree and 7-minute solar annular eclipse, which is conjunct the South Node. And so, yeah, there's a lot. Yeah, there's we got the luminaries conjunct Mercury. Mercury's getting close to the sun there. That South Node action. We got the eclipse ruled by Venus in Virgo, who's coming off that Saturn opposition. And of course, Mars, who just trined Saturn there. What else am I missing? Oh, the fact that it's squaring Pluto pretty much. I mean, it's a looser square, but it's close enough.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Thoughts.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I have so many thoughts. Well, first, I wanted to talk about the Sabian symbol for this nation. Because I think it's an interesting one. So that would be the Sabian symbol for 21 to 22. So I'm reading the 22-degree Libra one. And it's a child giving birds a drink at a fountain. And it's about and this is from Mindfire, Dane Rogers, Mindfire. Not Mindfire. That's the name of the Astrological Mandala. Is the book, and what so what the meaning of this particular degree is that it's about us being caretakers, being in service of those who aren't of the same consciousness, of the creatures who don't have the same consciousnesses as us, or of anyone who we're mentoring or who would look up to us. It's like really helping facilitate a healing process for people in our lives, but in particular, people who might be younger, who might not be as spiritually studied as us. And so I think there's a tremendous amount of potential with this transit. I mean, it's a cathartic transit. It's a cathartic lunation. We're still dealing with the Aries node, Pluto. We still have all of that, real radical energy of change and movement and progress. But there's a sensitivity to it. Yeah, it's a lot, the South Node eclipses, they love to bring things back from, first of all, I think they like to bring things back from the past. Right. Right.
That's a big element here, especially when we're thinking about maybe certain relationships, certain harmony factors in your own life that haven't been addressed with the world harmony factors. I mean, we're talking about cardinal signs here. When you were speaking, it made me think about maybe who needs our help most? Mother Nature and the animals and the plants, and thinking about giving water to birds, right? And the
Yes, yeah,
child too. And the child is someone who is innocent
right.
and fresh, and is is not, God, it just has an open heart,
Yeah.
right? And is identifying with the care and need of all creatures. And I'm thinking about that Venus and Virgo, right? And Virgo
Mhm.
is a very environmentally conscious sign.
Right.
Especially when we think about impurities, and Saturn. I mean, Saturn has been definitely lighting up issues with water dynamics.
Mhm.
And
Absolutely.
yeah,
And water
so
rights,
mhm.
and who owns water, and think about what was happening with the Maui fires. They were going into the hydrants and realizing there wasn't the water pressure to
Mm.
keep them going, or that they're, the being able to look at water from all different angles is a part of this too.
Yeah. And so I think that kind of that, what we said, that bringing up from the past, or just conditions that have been, that are not work, maybe this is the time when they go in there and they're like, oh,
Mhm.
well, we have to balance this out by making sure that all our systems are functioning and it has the right, because it's otherwise it's sucking us down, and it's draining us, and it's creating communities that can't support or sustain themselves because there's like oversights.
Right.
So there's just like it's like almost like the great balancing is what
Yeah,
seems
yeah.
to be happening here, because it's our only, I believe it's the only, is it only solar eclipse that's going to be in Libra? Am I remembering that
Um,
correct?
sure.
Let me do a little
Let me do that too.
let's see.
Um,
So that's, no,
mm,
there'll be one more. I
yep,
am
that's right.
misspeaking. There will be a October 2nd,
Right.
2024. Just fun fact that kind of blows my mind, actually, is that there's not going to be a solar eclipse in Pisces.
Oh, I did not know that.
I was kind of waiting for it for my own chart, and then I was kind of looking ahead. I'm like, oh, what's that going to happen? Where's that going to be? And I was like, what? It skips from Aries to
Mm.
28 degrees Aquarius. I'm like, how is that even possible? So just fun fact, for anybody who's might be waiting for a solar eclipse in Pisces, like me, it's not going to happen. So anyways, but yeah, so the great rebalancing,
Mhm.
especially with Eris there on the nodes.
Mhm.
This is this is a pretty gnarly eclipse, to be honest. Like, I think it's going to be very beneficial for
Mhm.
what it attacks, and what needs attention that has not gotten proper. It hasn't had its justice due. Um,
Mhm.
but we have to live it. This is going to be a dynamic time for just relationships in general, and I think for a lot of people too, especially reading tarot for people on random occasions. A lot of times, what do people want to know about? They want to know about love. Yeah.
Right.
It's like when I ask, I'm like, do you have a question you would like to bring to the table? I'm like, in the back of my mind, I'm like, okay, 80% chance that this is going to be about love. And it usually
Uh-huh.
is. And a lot of
Yeah.
times people are, when they're asking these questions, it's because there's a background of it not working for them, or
Mhm.
there's these, I don't want to say like buried content, but there's past, there's patterns, there's all these things that need to be worked through so that they can manifest the relationship that they are wanting and deserve. And so I think that this could be an interesting period for a lot of people, especially if they are struggling in the relationship department, to call in that person that is their person. This could maybe be a cycle that helps that. But first there's all this flushing that needs to
Right.
happen, or these
Right.
reprieves of past relationships, or reconciliations, or making peace with either the past, literally by having that one-on-one with someone, or just being able to do that within your own self and meditative space. But yeah, I think that'll be a thing.
Yeah, it's a big turning point for sure. And one thing I love about Bernadette Brady, how she describes this sorrow cycle in predictive astrology, tools to forecast your life and create your brightest future. And she describes this series of eclipses as not being subtle, as being very sensual, giving energy to and passion to our procreative drives. It can catch people off guard and confront them with their own very deep passion, which may have been hidden for years. So what you're talking about, I mean, that just everything that you're talking about is she backs you up there. But I really do think, yes, exactly. And with Mars and Scorpio is naturally getting us to to realize that we can't live a flat life. That meant many of us can't really live a flat life. That if there are passions, they're going to be awakened, and eclipses are catalysts of change. I looked back, and the October 14th eclipse in 2004.
Same date.
Same date. Now, the 2004 eclipse, I don't remember if it was exactly the October one, but that was the one that was the eclipse series that led to the Indonesian earthquake and tsunami. And so I'm not saying like, oh, we're going to have a big tsunami again or big earthquake, but the kind of catharsis that like, if we can take that metaphor and apply it to our lives, the kind of catharsis that we experience in our lives might feel like a tsunami either happening to us, like, oh, my partner says that like he's leaving me, or my partner is going out of town for 3 weeks and I have to be alone with the kids, or it comes motivated from inside of, I need to leave my job, I want to make a move. And so I love the term, the Great Rebalancing, because I think that's what this is going to be.
Yeah, I think absolutely so. And so when you're out of balance, we don't feel like we're out of balance. A lot of times we know we're out of balance, but out of balance is the norm.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And even though it can behoove us to come back into that space of balance, a lot of times that can be very hard. How out of balance are we? I mean, if the scale is so tipped, there can be a lot of work, a lot of adjustment, inner and outer spaces that make that balance come back into play. And that can be very disruptive. So we're back to this disruptive sort of energy. As I was like, Bernadette Brady, it's not subtle. It's not subtle here. So
it's not subtle. Right.
No.
And with the sun moving into an opposition with Aries.
Yeah.
That happens on the 18th. The sun activating the ongoing Aries North Node themes. That adds
right on the nodes.
Yes,
yeah, go
right
ahead.
on the South Node. And moving toward the square to Pluto.
Yeah.
The sun over those few days, and this is the eclipse tunnel, when we're between two eclipses. There's one on the 28th in Scorpio season, but when we're in the eclipse tunnel, everything feels like we're going through a tunnel underwater, swimming to the other side, not really quite sure of what we're going to see on the other side. So there's a lot of pressure. It's really focused. It's really intense. But it's beautiful in terms of creating change, like shaking things up in the way that they need to be shaken up for more balance. But the sun, kind of triggers some of these ongoing outer planet transits, and adds to some of the fire of that energy.
And I'm going to pull back to what you said earlier, Rachel, when you were talking about Mercury and being coming in and the truth will set you free.
Yes.
Because this is the moment. This is the moment right here. So basically between October 18th, which is a Wednesday, through through basically the first quarter moon in Capricorn, which is going to happen Saturday, the 21st on Pluto. So we're going to have a first quarter on Pluto. Talk about an entrance into eclipses. We're like, well, yeah, we're going to push you off on Pluto, and we're going to give you a Mercury Sun Cazimi right on the south node opposing Aries and then squaring Pluto. Like this is so that's why I want to come back to the brilliant thing you said earlier, talking about the truth will set like Mercury is coming along. And it's going to give some realization of this change, of the drain, of the imbalance, of the discord, the transformation that needs to happen. And the exact Cazimi will be, I believe, on the 20th, on Friday. But this is intense. This is like a life-changing moment for a lot of people, whether it's something they come to internally inside themselves, or maybe, you know, some people might like lose a job, or or have to move, or, you know, these are big these are big news stories too. I can imagine big
Very
news
much so.
stories.
Yes. Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised if they were, news stories about major conflicts, military activity, because of Eris and Aries. I'm not, like I said, I'm not a doomsday. I don't think we're going to go into major war or anything like that. I mean, there are wars happening in the world right now. But yeah, this is a day of big revelations, big storylines, and we have to know too that Mercury's moving into that square with Pluto. So after the Cazimi, Mercury's headed toward Pluto and saying, "All right, it's your turn now." And then the Sun squares Pluto.
Yeah.
I know I'm totally skipping ahead, but
it's good.
These days are so fast. It's like, this is happening, this is happening, this is happening. And so on a real practical level, if you're thinking I'm overwhelmed right now, it would be a great time to take a break, to give yourself a vacation from the 14th through the 22nd. Or at least clear your calendar of things that could be really overwhelming, that could take a lot of energy, that could tip your scales out of balance. This is a great time to be in a major introspective process where you're healing, where you're doing some self-discovery, where you're meditating. Make appointments with your healer and your therapist and your astrologer ahead of time. Really prioritize self-care.
Yeah, because it will be, it's going to be defining. And so why push ourselves through the daily, responsibilities and all of life's cacophony that is always around us, when we really need to process, and we really need to get in tune with these deeper changes that are happening. And it's very fitting to have Mars at 5 degrees of Scorpio, which is going to be the eclipse, the lunar eclipse point.
Yes.
So Mars is giving us some foreshadowing to what's coming on the, was it the 28th, 29th?
It's the 28th.
Yeah. So I'm back in what Rachel's saying here, because this can become a lot. And if we are proactive ahead of time, especially because life is probably going to throw us all something, like just caveat, life is going to throw every single one of us something.
Yes.
And we have to be in a place that we can receive that we can be with that, and process it. Because I think that's a big thing that we keep coming back to too, is like the processing. So just, first quarter in Pluto. So just prepare for big changes. I mean, as simple as that gets. It's what eclipses just naturally bring, but this one is really bringing it home with Plutonian energy. That is late. These are late degrees of things. So these are past due. These are wrapping up. This is old stuff. So turn a corner. That's the beauty of cardinal signs. Turn a corner.
Yeah, and I love that too. It's like, this is finishing business. So there are surprises, but you know, if you look back to 2004, 2005, back when we had this nodal axis before, you might see similar storylines reaching their conclusion.
Yeah.
And or just really present ones that have been up for you all year. So you can do it. You got this. This is exciting. This is really exciting times.
And for some of you, you might have been waiting for this.
Yeah.
Like when's the change gonna happen? When am I finally gonna? I'm like sick of carrying this. I'm sick like this. This is it, right? And you know, on a nice note, we end the season with Venus trining Jupiter. So that's a nice little something going on. And then Mercury is also trining Saturn. So there's this stability of mind, right? There's this you know, Mercury moves into Scorpio. I have to mention that. So Mercury gets out of the Libra party for a short period before the sun does. But you know, Mercury's coming in to make this trine with Saturn and Venus and Jupiter. I think I think it gives us something to work with.
Right. It's like the gift that comes on the heels, like getting the A on the exam that you studied really hard for and you passed, you know, and then you passed. It's a gift. And it's also, you know, Venus, Jupiter is, you're eating good food. You might have a little shopping spree. Like, it's actually pretty fun, pretty enjoyable and pleasurable. And with the moon moving into Aquarius, like, this is, you know, you sitting around with your friends and saying, oh my gosh, you won't believe what I just went through.
Yeah.
Everybody laughing and, oh my God, girl, I know, I got you, you know, like, you should hear what I went through. And then, finding some camaraderie for what we've all, for the roller coaster ride that we've all been riding.
Yeah. So it's a sweet way to wrap up Libra season, really, especially when, this is gonna be an interesting is such a base word to use, but sometimes when you have all the words for something but it can only have one, that's when we substitute interesting.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
It will be interesting for sure, and it will be cathartic. And you know, it's like I in my October horoscopes, I'm writing that October is, if this were a piece of music, it would be Beethoven's Fifth Symphony.
Is that like, dun 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 dun?
Yes, exactly.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yes. But then it resolves in a really nice way. It's like, oh, okay.
That's funny.
So,
oh, I can feel it already. Oh my goodness. All right. Well, Rachel, if you had one word to describe Libra season this year. Your Gemini moon. I'm sure you're.
If I had one word to describe it, I would describe it as, I think the word catharsis actually is the word I would pick. How about you?
I like it. The word that came to me was adjustment.
Oh, I like that.
And so I think we can combine them to cathartic adjustment.
Love that. And I also loved the term that you used too about the great balancing, the great rebalancing. That I don't remember. I didn't say.
I think that's what I said. Yeah, you definitely got the gist. The great rebalancing. Maybe we could add a little circus to it and say the Great Rebalancing Act. But yeah, I want to say the Rebalancer. That sounds like a horror movie, actually. the, the
Good.
Reanimator.
Uh-huh.
But either way, we are rebalancing our lives, and that's something to be exciting about, right? Because we all want harmony, we all want a little more peace, we all want connection, and sometimes it involves change in
Yes.
order to have those things. So, all right, Rachel. Well, tell people, where can they find you? What do you got going on? All the things.
All right. Well, my website is rachellangastrologer.com. And I'm actually going to be teaching with Rick Levine at the Omega Institute in New York, Eclipse weekend, October 13th through 15th. So I'm very excited about that. And then I have a magic class, a working with magic class that's coming up in 2024. I have psychic mediumship development. I've always got a million classes going on. Astrology for creatives that I co-teach with Bonnie Gillespie. So yeah, visit my website and you can see all the things.
Ah, I love it. So you can definitely bet Rachel was going to have something available for you to take part in. And so pick your poison. Like that's, and I will definitely share Rachel's information over at energeticprinciples.com. So come on over there. You can also find me on the socials at Energetic Principles. And if you want to follow our tarot project, you can follow us at Tarot of Her. You can go to tarotofher.com, and of course you can come to our Kickstarter campaign, because when this goes live, there will still be a good 10 days or so left of the Kickstarter. And so as we speak right now, we are about 64% funded, I think. So we still need 7,000 to meet our goal. But so far we've had a really good response, and yeah, it's exciting. We want to make this happen. And so I'm just in belief mode. And so if you feel called to support, come on over, and we will gladly accept your good generosity. So what else here? Well, I do have a monthly newsletter that comes out, the Heavenly Wind, at the beginning of each month. So you can sign up for that on my website as well. God, there's so many things I could say, but do I need them? Yeah, you know what I do need to say is that we're in Libra season. This is about spreading the good word. This is about socializing and sharing with others. So if you liked Rachel and I's conversation here today and you think other people should hear it, spread the good word. If you're listening to this on YouTube, hit the bell and subscribe. I think that's what people say. Leave a comment. Let us know what's going on in your world and what you think that the eclipse energies will bring, because it's always interesting to hear for other people. And if you're on Apple Podcasts, leave a 5-star. Well, if you feel it's 5-star, I'm not going to push you to do anything you don't want to do, because that's not right. But if you feel called, leave a nice review on Apple Podcasts, because that really helps the boost of visibility. All right, I think that does it, Rachel.
Wow.
It is always a pleasure getting to hang out with you.
I know. I feel the same way. So thank you so much for having me on the show, for geeking out with me about Libra season. And I'm going to send everybody to your Kickstarter. So
I appreciate that. See, what are friends for?
Right.
We support each other. So, all right. Well, all right, friends, you're all friends to us. So we are supporting you energetically in this time. And we wish you the best out there. And as always, may the stars be with you.